Hello everyone, welcome back. Let's do some drawing. So today we're doing the merchant, and the merchant's one of the nice gross characters of the game. So whenever in the half ship, the big mechanical-ish creature that we drew last time, the merchant won't be far away. So that kind of works as your shop, your go-to shop, whenever you're out in the wastes. And even though it will charge more for everything, really, it does make it quite convenient if you can just go to it and buy what you need, rather than trading with other wanderers and creatures from the outside world and in the wastes. And basically he was inspired more about a spider originally, and yeah, I just think the idea of multiple arms and dozens of bags, I just always found him such a wonderfully gross character to draw. And even though he never felt quite right for this game, there's something about that sort of comical aspect. It just kind of felt right, even though it didn't feel quite with the story. I don't know what I'm on about. So yeah, this is the merchant who goes around. You can kind of find him just scuttling around in the world at any time. He sort of follows you in a like a gross little caravan. Yeah, that's him really. All right. Little hand, little bracelet, and nice. Some rags and stuff. Other versions I've drawn of the merchant was wearing a suit, and there's just something really gross about clearly a character with, not hoping the best for you. Wearing a suit just has a strange archetypal for me, like a businessman, some sort of weapon launderer almost. So yeah, you're moving shop. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Anyway, how's everyone doing today? Nearly the end of the week. Exciting stuff. I wonder if anyone's got anything nice planned. And if you do, I'd love to hear about it. So you know where the comment section is. Just have a little ramble. Maybe a little bit of mumbling. Big fan of mumbling, as you can tell. Alright. Yeah, originally, the merchant was a playable character, and I've talked about a lot about the mini games and every character having their own special abilities, and that one special little mini game which uses, I think currently I'm working on 6 to 8 dice. The mini game for the merchant was you could create and use anything you have in your storage, but only once. So if anyone's ever played sort of like Breath of the Wild, your weapons deteriorate and break, after a while. And it was kind of like that. So you could get really lucky and draw some fantastic weapons or some really useful like items, healing, effigies that sort of every time you've done an attack or every time you hide or something like that, you heal a little bit, which is healing in this game is rare and it's super important. Or you could, pull out essentially a jam sandwich. So not that there's jam sandwiches in this world. Maybe I should add jam sandwiches. Special item, jam sandwich. Or maybe not. Then I'd be weird. Right, so lots of arms. And they don't really bend in the way they should. And all in all, it just doesn't feel quite right, this character. And I quite like that about him. Alright, some more wraps. Little jewel. Little bone necklace thing there. sort of just fill in space on this one page that I was going through my sketchbook. I thought, oh, there's a little gap there. I could put something in there. So I have. Right. Now the bags. Bags are a big thing for this character. Alright, cool. Nice. Little strap there, holding the bag. Some stitches. And the rest of the belt through there. The top of the bag. There's a stitch in there. And maybe a little chain or something, some thread wrapping around here. That's his stomach. Put some hair on there so I can kind of define it easier. There we go. His top of his leg, sort of his hip area. His knee on his left leg. I don't know why I'm narrating what I'm doing. It's what I got going on for me today. And narrate feet and legs. Alright. And we do another toe there. Again, as usual, I've given myself a little bit of a pencil plan, sort of what I'm hoping to achieve, but I'm not going to stick to it too much. I'm just going to draw what feels right. Nice. This is looking alright. I'm going to try and keep the video short-ish, like 10-12 minutes, but if it does go over, then that's alright, and you can always speed up, get to the end. I know I do that. There we are. I'll just do a little bit of shade in here, not too much, just to give a little more element of foreground and background of the creature. And then on the top, he's just going to have loads and loads of bags, and he's going to have a little effigy there. So some of the effigies that we talked about in previous videos are basically, they add different abilities to the character, as well as some of them actually give a second life. Oh, that's kind of creepy. Yeah, let's do that. And then sort of some belts, some chains, some thread. And a strap for the bags on his back. Little buckle. Nice. Look at that. Cool. And wrap around. And then on the back, really big set of bags. So yeah, I was just wondering if any of you have any thoughts about what would you like to see next. I did have a little attempt at doing a front cover for the channel, but I had a little bit of a camera issue. Started doing it and then realized that I hadn't filmed it, which was always a drag. But we learn as we go, don't we? It's not going to get right. I'm not going to get anything right on this channel for, well, not for the foreseeable future. Right, some sticks. Can't have enough sticks. Another strap, and then so at the bottom of the bag, I just put some tension lines there, so it's kind of like a sack resting on him, and some little hair, like a fur, because it is a creature, certainly not human in any way. More sticks. Alright, there we are. Also found out that the phone I'm using to record everything has an option to actually keep a focus. So you can say, no, don't go anywhere else, just I want the focus here, and it will. Isn't that cool? I did not find this out, by the way. If it was left to my own devices, I would have found out for years. But again, we learn. I don't know what these are. When I was sketching, I was like little chimneys. I thought, oh, little chimneys would be kind of cool. And this looks like a shell of some creature. It's fine. Oh yeah, I realised that we haven't spoken a lot about the game at all. So one of the things that you can use as currency, everything you can trade. So anything in the game will have a trade-in value. You know, so if it's very, very valuable, it'll be worth X number of coins, essentially. But we don't use money. We don't use money in this game, not at all. We use imargos, which is not quite the correct term, but it's a type of insect in this world. And when they're in their sort of, not quite the egg phase, but in the pupil stage, when they're sort of like not quite a larvae and not quite a little egg, that's when they're the most valuable. And so the money that you use in the game are essentially cocoons of this type of animal. Problem with that is eventually they grow up. So I'm not sure how to work out a time system on money, but so you can't just save. So there's kind of a sense of urgency, but should be able to find a way of feeling, you know, making that feel like that seems right. Also, you can kind of grow your own money in this as well. So there will be a room called the cultivation chamber, which has fantastic uses for gaining money. But the problem is when you're cultivating chamber, you have to use the remains of a creature or a nightmare. We'll go into this in another time. But with that, every day that you go back to the cultivation chamber to harvest your, you know, your money, there might be a chance of spawning something else from the cadaver of what you're growing the money from, or money in rather. So yeah, kind of gross, but I always thought it was a really cool idea that you could, you know, if you really struggling to sort of find money or do the missions that are too high level to gain what you need, you can essentially grow it with a bit of a high risk reward system, which I thought was a cool idea, man. I thought it was a cool idea anyway. I'd love to know your thoughts. Is it as cool as I think, or is it not? Right. Also, need to do a little show of my sketchbook so far because it is absolutely jam-packed with just the most bizarre stuff. Some of it might be quite useful to explain more for the game, or just have a nice little look at, you know, sort of what I do. Anyway, I think we're pretty much finished with this character. We're just gonna finish his little gross hands. Oh, that's not very well done. Oh, no, that one. A little bit too sketchy, I think that one was. And that's it. I think that's I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'm gonna put a little thing. The merchant. And yeah, in fashion, I'll give him a little symbol that notifies who he is. So I think that's more of a one of those, one of those, one of those. Yeah, that's cool. Nice. Well, I hope you enjoyed today. Let me know what you think about the rambling as ever, and I hope you enjoyed the merchant. Anyway, you all take care. Goodbye.